Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Trevor Jackson Podcast.
This year on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I want to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. Education. Knowledge. Knowledge is power. We've heard that statement over and over and over again in our life. Obtaining knowledge. You know, at one point in my life, I thought everything was about finances. Everything was about getting money. Everything was about being fly. And I put knowledge to the back burner. And when I got around knowledgeable people, I realized I was being taken advantage of because I didn't have the information. And I started researching and I started educating myself and I started being around like-minded people and people that wanted to further their knowledge. And on this episode, I want to discuss some of the papers, some of the notes that Martin Luther King took down early in his childhood. And, you know, at times in my life, I felt as if it wasn't necessary to journal, to write down your experiences, the things that you've seen in the times and the moments in your life that could be historical moments. But I want everybody to be aware that you need to write down those thoughts that you're having and that mind frame that you're having so you can be able to continue to grow, to be able to evolve, to be able to evolve, to be able to inform the people that comes after you because it's necessary. And me looking at Martin Luther King Jr., a lot of people as of recently have been ridiculing him for integrating the black race with the politicians and the government. But I don't want to do that because he was a black man and I didn't live in that time. And he's celebrated for multiple purposes. And I took some notes and I want to talk about his public school experience, his college experience, his theological seminaries, his Boston University experience. So King attended segregated public schools starting at age 5. He skipped grades 9 through 11 at Booker T. Washington High School. Morehouse, he enrolled at college in 1944 at age 15. Let me say that again. He enrolled in college at age 15. He earned a Bachelor of Arts and Sociology in 1948. King was influenced by his mentor, Dr. Benjamin Mays, the college's president. So King enrolled in Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania after graduating from Morehouse. He earned a Bachelor of Divinity degree and was elected president of his senior class. King was exposed to the ideals of Mahatma Gandhi at a lecture by A.J. Musse. Boston University, that's where he met his wife, Coretta Scott King, who he married in 1953. He earned a doctorate of philosophy and systematic theology in 1955. He enrolled in a graduate program at Boston University also. So this man continuously furthered his education. And he talks about the purpose of education, the importance of education in some of his notes that I'm about to read to y'all. Because, I listen to people speak nowadays who feel like education isn't important, and it scares me. It really does. It scares me, the lack of information that people can retain and people want to retain nowadays in this climate that we're living in. People are so caught up on their phones and on social media and on quick 60-second things that they don't want to. Everybody's attention span is short, and people don't want to have the discipline to be able to do anything long term. Not just education, but anything long term. So let me get into this conversation about the purpose of education from one of his notes. And in the description, I'm going to put down all of his papers that he wrote throughout his life, so you can click on them and read them also for yourself. Let's get to it though, man. So the details. This essay, written sometime during King's junior year at Morehouse, may be an early draft of the article of the same name published in the Moran Tiger. He suggested that education should not only teach men to think intensively, but also provide worthy objectives upon which to concentrate. So last week, we attempted to discuss the purpose of religion. This week, our attention moves towards education. I will attempt to answer the question with, what is the purpose of education? So this is a long note. We're going to get to it though. To my mind, education has a twofold function in society. On the one hand, it should discipline the mind for sustained and persistent speculation. On the other hand, it should integrate human life around central, focusing ideas. It is a strategy that the latter is often neglected in our education system. So what is the latter? On the other hand, it should integrate human life around central, focusing ideas. I'm going to continue to read the purpose of education, but I want to stop right there and I want to say it again. Education should integrate human life around central, focusing ideas. When I think about that, I think about why are we so focused on race? Why are we so focused on separation? And why are we so focused on competition and division and all of that in totality? When I think about unifying, I don't think about just the black race unifying. I think about humanity unifying. It's bigger than just the black race. A lot of people want to include and say that the black race, this, the FBAs, that, the Jamaicans, the Caribbeans, this and that though. But I think that it's bigger in totality than just that. I think education significantly speaks to the human race in totality. That unification only evolves people as a whole. Ignorance divides people. Ignorance separates people. Ignorance keeps people from evolving. Ignorance keeps separation going. And I appreciate that Martin Luther King, he valued education because, man, the purpose of education. Let me keep reading his notes, man, and just chop it up with y'all for a moment. So, to my mind, education has a twofold function in society. On the one hand, it should discipline the mind for sustained and persistent speculation. On the other hand, it should integrate human life around central, focusing ideas. It is a strategy that the latter is often neglected in our educational system. Education should equip us with the power to think effectively and objectively. Effectively and objectively. To think is one of the hardest things in the world, and to think objectively is still harder. Yet this is the job of education. Education should cause us to rise beyond the horizons of legions of half-truths, prejudices, and propaganda. Education should enable us to weigh and consider, to discern the true from the false, the relevant from the irrelevant, and the real from the unreal. The first function of education, therefore, is to teach a man to think intensively. But this is not the whole of education. If education stops here, it can be the most dangerous force in society. Some of the greatest criminals in society have been men who possessed the power of concentration and reason, but they had no morals. Perhaps the most dangerous periods in civilization have been those periods when there was no moral foundation in society. Education without morals is like a ship without a compass, merely wandering nowhere. It is not enough to have the power of concentration, but we have worthy objectives upon which to concentrate. It is not enough to know the truth, but we must love truth and sacrifice for the truth. I want to go back to something. This was profound what was said right here. Because the first function of education, therefore, is to teach a man to think intensively. I want to stop right there. I just got through talking to a brother who we about to do a show together. And I think it's going to be a real dope, interesting podcast. And when I think about think intensively, I'm going to get to the next topic, but I want to talk about this for a moment. When I think about think intensively, I'm a person that's self-taught. Everything that I learned and everything that has happened in my life, I taught myself. I've had a beautiful mother in my life who spoke life into me. She educated me and did as much as she possibly could, and I appreciate her more than she could ever know. I love her to death. But being self-taught is not like being taught through school or through college or going to these institutions of learning. Going to an institution of learning, you learn discipline to learn. You cut everything off and just focus solely on what you're learning. Being self-taught, you go away from it, you come back to it, you go away from it, you come back to it. It's not as intense. You don't need it as bad as if you did and a paper was done tomorrow. The institutions of learning should be appreciated. And man, I wish I could go to an institution of learning. I wish somebody would pay my bills for 10 years or whatever, and I could just learn, and I'd be the smartest person on the planet. And the reason I say that is because don't wait too late to value education. Martin Luther King went to a HBCU at 15 years old. He didn't even live. I'm about to be 45 in a couple of days, man. He didn't even live long enough to implement everything that the knowledge that he obtained. But we're going to get into the next thing, man. He had notes. He had notes on capitalism, American capitalism. And I'm going to read them to y'all, man. I'm here for the education, man. I'm here to learn with y'all. At first we started off with the purpose of education. Now we're going to go to the notes of American capitalism. I've done shows on this channel about capitalism. A multitude of shows. I've talked about capitalism. I've done shows with other people and they ignored my take on capitalism because they didn't want to inherit the things that was being said. Capitalism, to me, is a structure that is different from other structures. But it has been successful to me in comparison to the other structures, because if it wasn't successful, why would these other peoples from these communist countries and these other countries run to the United States and the massive amounts of people that they do? Why would they run over here? It's been successful. A lot of people don't view it at that. A lot of people didn't embrace it and they didn't want to be a part of it. But I think capitalism is a successful system. I'm going to get some backlash for that. But who cares? That's just my perception. I have a free range to think the way I want to think. Capitalism is a successful system. Now let's get into what Martin Luther King thought on his notes about capitalism. And I'm going to read it to y'all and we're going to chop it up some more, man. So, Karl Marx, the German philosophy and economist, slated that capitalism carries the seed of its own destruction. There is an obvious fallacy in that statement. The fallacy is that it is limited to capitalism, leaving the impression that other social movements do not carry the seed of their own destruction. The actual fact is that every social institution carries the seed of its own destruction. Its survival depends on the way the seed is nourished. Now, after admitting that there is a fallacy in Marx's statement, do we find any truth therein? It is my opinion that there is. I am convinced that capitalism has seen its best days in America, and not only in America, but in the entire world. It is a well-known fact that no social institute can survive when it has outlived its usefulness. This capitalism has done, it has failed to meet the needs of the masses. We need not only to look at the underlying developments of our society, there is a definite revolt by what Marx calls the, I can't pronounce that word, the proletarian against the bourgeoisie. Everywhere we turn, we are faced with stricts and the demand for socialized medicine. In fact, what is more socialistic than the income tax, the TVA, or the NRB? What will eventually happen is this: labor will become so powerful in the recent election that she will be able to place a president in the White House. Oh, hold up. Labor will become so powerful that she will be able to place a president in the White House. This will inevitably bring about a nationalization of industry. Okay. That will be the end of capitalism. I am not saying that there is a conscious move towards socialism, not even by labor. The move is certainly unconscious, but there is a definite move away from capitalism. Where we conceive of it as conscious or unconscious, capitalism finds herself like a losing football team in the last quarter, trying all tactics to survive. You know, let me read this. Hold up. This was written, this is the King Papers. The link is going to be in the description to the King Papers. This was written May the 4th, 1951. In Chester, Pennsylvania. It has been 77 years and capitalism still exists. That's interesting. We're going to get into the last conversation, the last papers to read, Kick Up Dust. And I'm thankful that Martin Luther King Jr. existed. I'm thankful that we get to celebrate his life, his existence, his education. Still to this day, a lot of people want to remove Black History Month, but I don't think it need to be removed. I think Black people need to celebrate each other every day, though. But I think that the month should stay, and we should kick it up a notch, turn it up a notch, and celebrate each other and love on one another. And you know, with the violence and stuff that our race do to each other, gang violence and stuff, the Crips and the Bloods need to put the guns down for a month. It's mandatory, or you get kicked out the gang. People need to support each other's business for a month, or just stop with the foolishness. Don't spew that you are us or you with us. I think we need to turn it up a notch for the month of February and continue to turn it up a notch, because, you know, they say that a habit, if you can do anything for 20 days consistently, y'all know the rest. Let me read the rest of this to y'all, man. Kicking Up Dust. This is a letter to the editor of the Atlanta Constitution. Let's go. So, I often find when decent treatment for the Negro is urged, a certain class of people hurry to raise the scarecrow of social mingling and intermarriage, These questions have nothing to do with the case, and most people who kick up this kind of dust know that it is simply dust. To obscure the real question of rights and opportunities, it is fair to remember that almost the total of race mixture in America has come, not at Negro initiative, but by the acts of those very white men who talk loudest of race purity. We aren't eager to marry white girls, and we would like to have our own girls left alone by both white toughs and wife aristocrats. We want and are entitled to the basic rights and opportunities of American citizens, the right to earn a living at work for which we are fitted by training and ability, equal opportunities in education, health, recreation, and similar public services, the right to vote, equality before the law, some of the same courtesy and good manners that we are ourselves bring to all human relations. On June 26, 1946, the Atlanta Constitution reported the killing of Maceo Snipes, the only black person to vote in his district in Taylor County, Georgia. On the day after he voted, 4 white men shot Snipes to death on the 27th of July. The newspaper reported that 20 white men stopped and shot 2 black couples who were driving near Monroe, Georgia. The Constitution expressed a heartfelt sense of shame and embarrassment over these incidents, but repeated its opposition to legislation that would make instances of mob violence a matter for federal authorities. Man, you know, I don't know what it was like to live back in those days with the intermingling of the races. And the people, the sexes, like black men dating white women, black men creating life with white women, and white men wanting to create life with black women. Us integrating with each other's societies. But we do that, but they still don't view, or they didn't view, black people as humans around that time. They didn't want us to be able to vote. They didn't want us to be able to obtain the same status and finances as them. It's just weird. You want to create with us, but you don't want to let us grow and evolve. In his own words, man. Thank y'all for tuning in, man. How will y'all celebrate Martin Luther King Day? I tried to read some of his notes and just continue to further the discussion and the education with y'all, man. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to my podcast, man, for celebrating the things that we got going on over here at the Trevor Jackson TV. Thank you, man. I appreciate y'all, man. Peace, love, plenty, abundance. Make sure you go get you some money, and I'm gone. Well,
I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
The Trevor Jackson Podcast.